The film begins in Latin America in the early 2000s, a time when kidnapping cases reached their highest point in the region's history. The recorded data was horrifying. Every 60 minutes, one person was kidnapped, and 70% of those taken never returned alive. Major cities like Mexico City never slept free from fear. Parents lived in constant anxiety, children were guarded at all times, and the kidnapping insurance business thrived. Amid this tense situation, a former CIA officer named John Creasy came to visit his old friend Paul, who had also once worked in the same intelligence agency. That afternoon, in a modest house in Mexico, as they sat together with a bottle of liquor, John, with a heavy voice, asked Paul whether God would still forgive them for all the sins and crimes they had committed while working for the CIA. Paul stared at him for a long moment before admitting that he wasn't sure if forgiveness was even possible for men like them. Paul then advised John to stop drowning himself in alcohol, as it was clearly clouding his judgment. When Paul asked what John had been doing lately, John simply replied that he had been doing nothing. Paul then said that in a big city like this, many wealthy families were looking for private bodyguards, and he believed John was perfect for the job. Paul mentioned a car company owner named Samuel Ramos, a well-off man living in Mexico City. Samuel had a young daughter named Lupita, affectionately called Pita, and because of the rampant kidnappings, she needed a bodyguard for the family's kidnapping insurance policy to remain valid. The scene then shifts to Samuel's office, where he is seen having a serious conversation with his lawyer, a man named Jordan. The lawyer warned Samuel that if he did not immediately hire a certified bodyguard for his daughter, the insurance policy would soon expire. Samuel looked troubled and pressured as it concerned his daughter's safety.
For a goddamn Superman here, right?
Think they'd hire a drunk, a has-been?
You're crazy.
You even look the part. They're not going to be paying you enough to perform.
Gotta be close to people, though. You gotta talk all the time.
Eventually, Paul convinced John to take the job, though at first John seemed reluctant. A few days later, John was already sitting in a car with Samuel. During the ride, Samuel opened John's resume and was stunned by his impressive record as a former CIA operative with elite combat and tactical experience. Samuel then asked why someone with such qualifications would work merely as a bodyguard when he could easily find a more prestigious position. John answered honestly that he drank too much, and when a man drinks more than he should, his reflexes and alertness fade, making him unfit to work for the government. Samuel gave a faint smile and said that drinking wasn't an issue for him, as all he needed was someone who could protect his daughter. However, he also asked John never to mention this drinking problem to his wife. When they arrived at the Ramos residence, John was introduced to Samuel's wife, Lisa. She was friendly and actually liked the fact that John was American, believing that American men were more disciplined and trustworthy. Lisa then called her daughter, Pita, a lively little girl about 10 years old. Pita greeted John politely and innocently invited him to see her room. Inside, she told John that he was her fifth bodyguard and that she hoped he wouldn't leave her like the others did. John, still looking somber, simply listened.
Did a lot of children before, Mr. Creasy? Why Creasy? Yeah? Big sad bear.
One afternoon, John was in Pita's room and noticed a map of her school pinned to the wall. While trying to focus, a parrot in the room wouldn't stop squawking, giving him a headache. John eventually opened the cage and released the bird, something that made Pita look surprised but amused. The next morning, on their way to school, the curious Pita asked John many questions. She innocently asked if being a black bodyguard in Mexico was a good thing. John calmly replied that only time would tell. During the ride, he explained the reality of kidnappings in the city, mentioning that 24 people had been kidnapped just in the past week. Pita listened quietly, her young mind trying to process the gravity of his words. When they arrived at school, Pita insisted that John accompany her inside. There, she introduced him to her teacher. The teacher looked at John carefully and remarked that he seemed like a man haunted by pain and sadness from his past. She then suggested that he read the Bible, even reciting a few verses aloud. John, who was already familiar with the scriptures, continued reading softly as if finding a momentary sense of peace. The days passed with the same routine. While Peta was in class, John waited outside, and when school ended, he took her home. On one of their drives, Peta asked whether John had liked school as a child. He replied that he hadn't, since his school back then wasn't as advanced or enjoyable as hers. Her endless curiosity eventually tested John's patience, and with a cold tone, he said that he was there as a bodyguard, not a friend, so she should stop asking too many questions. The words hurt Peta deeply. When they arrived home, she sat silently in the back seat, disappointed, while John slowly realized that he had just hurt the feelings of an innocent child. That night, Lisa tried to talk to John, but he firmly told her that he wasn't a man of many words and that his only duty was to protect her daughter, not to become close with the family. Later that night, haunted by guilt, trauma, and alcohol addiction, John couldn't sleep. In despair, he decided to end his life. He sat down with his pistol, pressed it to his head, and pulled the trigger, but the gun jammed. Trembling, he called Paul and told him everything. Paul begged him to stay calm and hold on. Outside, the rain poured heavily as John stood in the downpour, drenched and broken, unaware that Peta was quietly watching him from her window. From that moment, she began to understand the pain and inner wounds carried by her bodyguard.
All right? Yeah.
The next morning, John drove Peta to school again. While on the road, he noticed a car following them. Quickly, he asked Peta for a pencil, but the clever girl instead wrote down the license plate number on her own initiative. That day happened to be Peta's swimming competition. John stood at the poolside, cheering for her. Peta gave her best effort, but finished in third place. On the way home, she looked sad and told John she would never be able to win. John reassured her that it wasn't true, explaining that she actually swam faster than the others, but was too slow when diving into the water. His words reignited her determination, and from that day, John began training her seriously to be a more confident swimmer. Slowly, their relationship changed. The bond between the broken soldier and the innocent girl grew stronger. Meanwhile, Samuel and Lisa went out of town for work, leaving Peta under John's care. He was no longer just her bodyguard, but also her trainer, friend, and father figure.
5,000. You were smiling.
No.
Days passed until the next swimming competition arrived. By now, John and Peta had grown very close, and he treated her as if she were his own daughter. When the race began, Peta dove into the water confidently, remembering all of John's advice about timing her start perfectly. The result was astonishing. She won. Overjoyed, Peta jumped in excitement, while John smiled proudly, something rare for the usually stern man. That victory became a turning point in their relationship. Peta gained true confidence, and John found new meaning in life. After the competition, Peta resumed her usual routines, including piano lessons.
¿Cuánto tiempo?
Una hora.
No, espera.
John patiently drove her there, but as he stepped out of the car after dropping her off, he noticed a familiar vehicle nearby, the same one that had followed them before. This time, the car carried two men in uniforms who claimed to be federal police officers, but their behavior was suspicious. The car blocked the road in an unusual way, and John instantly sensed something was wrong. He realized these men weren't there to protect. They were part of a kidnapping plot. Thinking fast, John knew Peta would be targeted the moment she left her piano class. With a serious expression, he whispered to himself that there was only one way to save her. When Peta came out, John shouted for her to run without looking back.
Peta! Run!
John fought fiercely, shooting down 4 attackers, including the fake police officers, but his own body was riddled with bullets. He collapsed, bleeding heavily, as Peta was captured, her terrified screams echoing as the kidnappers sped away. Days later, after barely surviving, John regained consciousness. But instead of being treated as a victim, he was accused of killing police officers and labeled a suspect. The media painted him as a criminal, but a journalist named Mariana Guerrero began to doubt the official story. She revealed that the so-called police officers weren't on duty that day and had been involved in corruption cases.
Y ahora se le celebra porque ha muerto.
Meanwhile, an AFI agent named Miguel Manzano decided to secretly help John escape from the corrupt authorities. He moved him to a veterinary clinic used as a safe house. Soon, a phone call came from a mysterious man known as The Voice, the leader of the most dangerous kidnapping ring in the region. The Voice demanded a ransom of $10 million for Peta's release. In a panic, Samuel Ramos agreed. To handle the exchange, he enlisted the help of Lieutenant Victor Fuentes, a police officer who seemed trustworthy. However, on the day of the handover, everything went horribly wrong. The kidnappers were ambushed by another group, leading to a deadly shootout. The Voice's nephew was killed, and the ransom money never reached them. Enraged, the Voice accused the Ramos family of betrayal and called them again, coldly declaring that as punishment, Peta would be gone forever.
Get the fuck out of my fucking house!
She's dead. It's a mess. Somebody hijacked.
The news devastated Lisa. Meanwhile, Mariana warned John that the kidnappers weren't ordinary criminals, but part of a secret organization called La Hermandad, a dark brotherhood made up of corrupt officials, paid cops, and crime lords. Hearing this, John vowed to Lisa that he would personally hunt down, torture, and kill everyone responsible for Peta's suffering.
I'm gonna kill him.
He went to Peta's room and opened her little diary, finding innocent words of affection in which she wrote about how much she loved him. Tears streamed down the hardened man's face. For the first time, he felt genuinely loved. He also found Peta's note with the license plate number, an important clue. John contacted Mariana, asking her to trace it. With Paul's help, John armed himself with guns, grenades, and gear. The bloody hunt began. He interrogated a gatekeeper, cutting off the man's fingers to make him talk before killing him once he got the information he needed.
Know who I am? No sé.
The trail led to a nightclub where John confronted several kidnappers. He killed one known as Jersey Boy and another criminal before rescuing a young girl who had also been kidnapped. He also found an ATM card with suspicious transactions. John called Mariana, asking her to come to the scene. He handed her the rescued girl and warned her that Lieutenant Fuentes, the officer helping Samuel, was part of La Hermandad.
Is he learning that?
Creasy, he's better protected than the president of Mexico.
Manzano later interviewed Paul, who described John with chilling simplicity. John Creasy is an artist of death. According to him, now that John had decided to take revenge, no one involved would survive. Mariana, initially just a journalist, eventually convinced Manzano to secretly assist John in his personal war. That night, John launched a daring attack. He ambushed Fuentes' convoy with a rocket launcher, captured the lieutenant,
C4, highly explosive. Don't move.
and strapped a bomb to his body. Calmly, John told him that the bomb could detonate at any moment. Terrified, Fuentes confessed that he had ordered his men to intercept the ransom delivery, but most of the money had been embezzled by Jordan Calfus, the Ramos family's lawyer. John brutally killed Fuentes, then went after Calfus.
Last wish, please, please.
At Kalfus's house, John found him dead, his head severed. Nearby was a fax of bank documents that traced back to Samuel Ramos himself. John confronted Samuel and called Lisa so she could hear the truth. Pale-faced, Samuel confessed everything. Kalfus had convinced him to fake Peeta's kidnapping to collect insurance money and pay off massive debts inherited from his father. Samuel swore that he had been told Peeta wouldn't be harmed, but things spiraled out of control. He blamed Kalfus for everything and admitted to killing the lawyer. Listening from the phone, Lisa was devastated. She couldn't believe her husband had dragged their daughter into danger for money.
Man, fucking man!
I agreed to the kidnapping!
Furious, she told John that if he didn't kill Samuel, she would. John then left Samuel alone, placing a pistol with a single bullet in front of him. Racked with guilt, Samuel picked it up and shot himself. Meanwhile, Mariana and Manzano continued their investigation, tracing ATM withdrawals linked to the Voices network. Their search led them to the Voices' wife, through whom they discovered the crime lord's address. Manzano infiltrated the house and obtained a photo of the Voice, which Mariana boldly published despite threats from La Hermandad. She also gave John the address. John acted immediately. He kidnapped the Voice's wife and brother, Aurelio. During the confrontation, he was shot in the chest, but managed to stay alive. From Aurelio, he learned the Voice's real identity, Daniel Sanchez. John then called Sanchez, threatening to kill his family.
How much do you want?
I want you!
But Sanchez revealed a shocking truth. Peeta was still alive.
She's alive.
He offered a trade, Peeta's freedom in exchange for Aurelio's life. Without hesitation, John accepted. With his body weakened and bleeding, John contacted Lisa to join him at the meeting place. The exchange took place on a quiet overpass. There, John finally saw Peeta again.
I love you, Gracie.
The little girl ran toward him crying, and he hugged her tightly, silently telling her how much he loved her. Gently, he handed Peeta back to Lisa, ensuring she returned safely to her mother's arms. Afterward, John surrendered himself to Sanchez's men. Too weak to fight, he sat quietly as they drove away. His breathing grew slower, and he eventually passed away peacefully, knowing he had fulfilled his promise to save Peeta, the only good thing he had ever done in his life. Sometime later, Manzano tracked down Daniel Sanchez. During the arrest, Sanchez resisted, and Manzano shot him dead on the spot, ending the Voice's reign of terror once and for all. The moral message of this story is that love and sincere sacrifice can redeem even the deepest wounds of the past. John Creasy proved that no matter how broken or sinful a person may be, they can still find meaning in life by protecting others, for courage and compassion are far more enduring than power or wealth.